what is creating the most stress in your life? Most people go through their day, it's like a blur. They go from one thing to the next to the next. And this is a form of stress. Even if you're going from one thing that you love to the next thing that you love, there needs to be space. And what I found is when people don't have space throughout their day, intentional space just to rest, to allow their mind to rest, to allow their bodies to rest, then the body builds up this tension and pressure. And a lot of times it's not even conscious. People are not aware that this tension is building. And then it takes so much at the end of the day to discharge that tension. Whereas if people just focused on creating some more space and prioritizing some time for rest, mental rest, emotional rest, physical rest throughout the day, it would be so much easier for their body to then rest at night.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health. And now here is our host and producer, Hilda Labrada Gore.
Hey, Hilda here. Solid sleep improves our mood, energy, performance, and obviously our health. The question is, how do we improve our sleep to get all of that good stuff? This is episode 403, and our guest today is Devin Burke. Devin is the author of The Sleep Advantage and the founder of the Sleep Science Academy. He coaches high achievers and exhausted insomniacs all over the world to get better sleep. Today, Devin tells us exactly why sleep is so essential and what we can do to improve the quality of it, even if the quantity doesn't change. Devin shares his 3-2-1 sleep method for deeper, more restorative sleep. He discusses the effect of alcohol and caffeine on sleep quality, and he answers a few questions like whether a melatonin supplement is a good thing or not, and whether it's preferable to go to the gym late at night so you don't miss your workout, or to hit the hay. Finally, he reviews the relationship between our sleep quality and our stress levels during the day. In sum, he reminds us that we jeopardize our health when we don't prioritize sleep. Before we dive in, we have another freebie for you. We are giving away free journals. If you're not a member yet, this will give you a taste of the good stuff that we put into our quarterly journal every year. Just go to our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the Request a Free Copy of the Journal button and wait by your mailbox with anticipation. I'll put a link in the show description so you can get it even more quickly. And if you're a WAPF member, you qualify for a free journal too. A quick shout out to Smart Dots. Smart Dots provide EMF solutions for all of your electronics. Smart Dots shares their 12 years of personal experience and offer what has worked best for them to mitigate the effects of EMF exposure. As medical researchers and being EMF sensitive, they have completed research and done the shopping for you. Unless you are EMF sensitive, it is difficult to choose effective EMF products for your family. Smart Dots founders, EMF sensitivity provides them with the ability to determine which products actually make a difference in this field. These are products that you can place on your cell phones, tablets, microwaves, and even Wi-Fi routers. There are even wearable dots that come as jewelry or wristbands. The goal is to offset EMF exposure, so go to smartdots.us to order now. And a special offer for those who place an order in January or February of this year. You'll get a free copy of Smart Dots' book, EMF Freedom: Solutions for the 21st Century Pollution, and an EMF safety checklist. Again, go to smartdots.us to order now. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Devin.
Oh, thanks for having me. Excited to talk sleep with you.
Yay, me too. Okay, now most of us drag ourselves out of bed, grab a cup of coffee, struggle to make it through the day, and everybody seems to be exhausted, to be honest with you. And then they have trouble falling asleep. What is going on?
Yeah, it's a huge, huge problem for so many people. And if you go in any public place, whether it's an airport, you just see people, they look tired. And that's because they are. A big part of this is the relationship between stress and sleep, which they're bidirectionally linked. So the more stress you experience, the less rest you experience, the less rest you experience, the more stress you experience physically, mentally, emotionally. So people get stuck on this loop where they're stressed, so they're not sleeping, and they're not sleeping, and their body's more stressed. And then on it goes until hopefully you listen to this podcast and do some of the things that we're going to talk about to get out of that paradox, because it's just not fun. It affects every important area of your life.
Oh my gosh, Devin, you're the first person who has ever talked about that relationship between stress and sleep on this podcast. I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. I mean, it's honestly, I see it more. It's so common. People don't, for whatever reason, they just tend to focus on just what's going on at night. And great night of sleep happens as soon as you wake up. Everything you do throughout your entire day is going to dictate whether you're going to get a peaceful night rest. And that peaceful night rest is going to affect everything the next day. So you can't really separate your day from your night. It's really important for people to, for that to land for people.
Yes. And when you say you can't separate your day from your night, it makes me think about how some people do wake up in the middle of the night and they're trying to resolve a problem or remembering some difficult moment from their day, right? And so they can't go back to sleep because they're so worried. So in that way, they may understand that on that level.
100%. And that is so common. People often say, when you ask the question, why do you have trouble sleeping? Well, I have a racing mind at night. And that either gets in the way of me being able to initiate sleep, which we call sleep latency, or stay asleep. And people wake up and then they start thinking about all the would-haves and the could-haves and the should-haves. And next thing you know, the body is releasing cortisol and adrenaline. And now your body's at threat. And a body at threat is not going to sleep because it thinks that it needs to be awake for survival. And so many people find themselves in this situation night after night.
So let's talk about how we can lower our stress level to make that sleep more peaceful and restorative.
So something I always like to share is just really simple, tactical, what you could do tonight. We'll just start there.
Yes.
I call it 3-2-1 sleep. So 3 hours before bed, you want to stop eating. And the reason is you don't want to be digesting food when that first quarter of the night, that's when you're getting into these deeper stages of sleep, this body restoration. And you want your body's energy to be cleaning up the cancerous cells, flushing out the beta amyloid, the plaque, all the things that the body does during this important stage of sleep. You want that taking place. You don't want the blood going to the digestive system to try to digest. Trying to sleep and digest at the same time is not a really good combo. So 2 hours before bed, stop working. This is a huge one, especially since so many people now work from home. We often take our day into our night. And there needs to be a buffer, what we call a bed buffer, between your day and your night. Because the brain, you can't just turn the brain off. It doesn't work like that. There needs to be space. And so 2 hours before bed, stop working. And 1 hour before bed, that's when you would start a nighttime routine or a nighttime ritual that doesn't involve technology, because for so many reasons. One, the blue light gets in the way of the natural melatonin production, but also the hyperarousal from the devices and the shows that most people watch, especially the news, which is like the worst thing to watch while you're in bed or right before you go to bed. So 3-2-1 sleep, it's really simple and it's easy for people to remember and apply.
Yeah, and I want to focus on this last bit, the bedtime routine that has nothing to do with tech, because think about how you would put your kids to bed. You would read them some books. There would be a bath. There was a ritual that we performed with them to help them prepare for sleep. They know, okay, first it's a bath, then it's a story, then it's a song, then it's a prayer. With some kids, this can get elongated. But the point is, their bodies would know, oh, when this happens, I'm starting to wind down. I'm starting to get ready to rest. But as adults, we don't do that.
We don't. We tell a story that we don't have the time. And that's a story. You have to make the time. You have to prioritize and protect that important aspect of your time so that you can get the rest you need to get up and do it again. So yeah, if you treat yourself like you would treat your children, that's great bedtime routine. The hot bath, that's going to drop the core body temperature when you get out of the bath. And we need, that temperature to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit for sleep to happen. So that's going to support that. The reading is going to help get our minds off of, the day's worries and troubles. So that's treat yourself like you would treat your kids, and you're definitely going to sleep better, without a doubt.
And think about this, Devin, how kids are like, but wait, we want to keep playing, but wait, we want to watch this show. And you're like, no, it's time for this, but
Yes.
We don't do that with ourselves. Oh, wait, I have to clean the kitchen. I don't want to go to bed with one dirty dish in the sink. Or, oh, I have one more email I got to shoot out. And it's like, no, let's be kind to ourselves. Now, let's go back to what you were saying at the top about insufficient sleep, that most of us are running around tired and exhausted. What happens to us when we are in that cycle, when we're stressed and we're not getting enough restorative sleep? What are the effects on the body?
Yeah. So literally, there's not an important area of your life that's not affected. So, from a physical health and longevity standpoint, unfortunately, when you're consistently sleep deprived, it increases your risk of literally every major disease from heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of the big ones. Your risk for developing those diseases is enhanced. So, that's first and foremost because it's during the night when our body's immune system is most active. And we all have cancerous cells in our body. And it's during the night when those cancerous cells are getting cleared out. And, autophagy is happening. Our body's sort of clearing out all of the damage. So if we're not getting enough time in bed and not enough quality sleep, which we can talk about what that actually means, our body's not able to clean up the garbage throughout the night. And then this impacts our health in the long run, not to mention the impact on our hormones. So specifically insulin, there's studies that show that even after one night of sleeping, between 4 to 5 hours, your insulin, you could look like pre-diabetic because your insulin is totally thrown off. Your cortisol levels are increased, and that's the stress hormone. And then ghrelin and leptin, which are those signaling hormones for, hey, I'm full or I'm hungry, they get thrown off. So you're craving sugar and fat like crazy, and your body doesn't know when you're full. So it's just really a recipe for weight gain and bad decision making, which leads us into the next area that's impacted is our cognitive function.
Oh, of course. But I want to pause there for a second because I'm thinking about something I've heard, and I know you can't believe everything you read on the internet or see there, but somebody was saying that if you have a choice between going to the gym late at night or going to sleep, go to sleep. And
Yes.
I feel like that's a little bit of what you were saying there.
100%. Well, if you go to the gym too late, unfortunately, that will affect your sleep because what controls our sleep is our body temperature and light. And so by exercising too close to bedtime, it heats the body up and the body temperature needs to drop for sleep to happen. So that's why they say have a cold, dark room, which will absolutely improve your sleep, like sleeping in a cave, because that helps you get into the deeper stages of sleep.
So that leads us to the quality of sleep that you wanted to touch on. So I used to always sleep soundly, not a lot of tossing and turning, not a lot of moving all night long, but I'm not sure that my sleep was always restorative, that it was as profound as it needed to be. What are some of the metrics by which we can measure that? How can we know that our sleep is as restorative and effective at all the things you were discussing, autophagy, kind of working on taking care of us on a cellular level? How can we know that it's doing that? Is there a way to know?
Yeah. So now there's amazing tracking devices that do a really good job of showing us how well we're sleeping. Now, these devices are not perfect, but they are getting better and better as technology continues to improve. And so measuring your sleep is a great way of understanding at a deeper level. It'll show, so the device that we use at Sleep Science Academy is the Oura Ring, which is a ring you wear on your finger. Okay, there, yeah, you have one.
I do.
That's going to measure your body temperature, your heart rate variability. That's going to measure the different stages of sleep, with deep delta sleep or REM sleep when we talk about quality. And we want 20% of our total sleep time to be in that deep delta sleep or that REM sleep. Those are like the really important stages of sleep. Of course, you got to get through the initial stages of sleep to get to those stages. But people are always surprised when they actually start to consistently measure their sleep, how little deep sleep and REM sleep they're actually getting. And this is because of a variety of factors that, we could talk about. But when we talk about quality of sleep, that's what we're talking about.
Right. You want to be in that restorative REM or the deep sleep like you were discussing. And if people don't have a device to measure, I think you can also tell by how fatigued you are in the day.
Yeah.
Why is it if you're in bed 8 hours and you're like, okay, I got a good 8 hours sleep, that you're still tired, you still need your coffee, you still need something to kind of wake you up in the middle of the afternoon? That means something's off. And so you might want to pay attention to the bedtime ritual, as you were mentioning, to your sleep hygiene, to the temperature in your room, all those things that will be a factor in the profundity of your sleep.
100%. And you can't master what you're not measuring. So it's worth the investment to get, even if it's an Apple Watch, or it doesn't have to be an Oura Ring, just have something that's going to help you measure your sleep so that you can see the impact when you make the lifestyle changes and the behavior changes, how that impacts your sleep. And then you can start to correlate, wow, I did this, I slept better, and I felt better. And then that becomes a new habit, and you have the momentum and the motivation to continue those healthy lifestyle habits.
It's true. Like my husband makes fun of me because I go to bed so early. But one thing I learned from studying my sleep patterns with the Oura Ring is just because you're in bed 8 hours doesn't mean you necessarily slept 8 hours. There are little moments when I'm turning a little bit or I hear an ambulance outside or whatever. So I'm waking up. I have my wakeful moments too. So I might be in bed 8 hours, but only get 7 hours sleep. So I adjust for that and take it into account. And I go to bed a little bit earlier. And he's like, okay, now you're really like a grandma because you're going to bed so early. But who has more energy? Oh, I hope he's not listening right now. But I feel so good when I get sufficient sleep. So let's talk about that a little bit. When we make the lifestyle changes that you're recommending, Devin, what benefits might we see in our overall health and energy?
So first and foremost, you're going to be able to make better decisions because when we're well slept, the prefrontal cortex, that's our executive functioning part of the brain, is functioning the way that it should be versus being sleep deprived. So this is a big one for people. People don't realize when we're underslept, we're making poor decisions. When we get the sleep we need, we're making better decisions. And then literally our destiny is dictated by our decisions, right? So every little thing you do throughout the day, when you're getting the sleep you need, you're going to be doing it at a higher level. Your memory, it is so important to memory. And there's a lot of science and studies that show this. When we get the sleep we need, our brain is functioning. We're able to actually remember things. That's because during the night, short-term memory is getting shuttled to long-term storage. That happens during REM sleep. Also, emotional traumas are being worked out. So our emotional health, our emotional fortitude is stronger. And anyone that's listening to this probably knows, when you don't sleep, you feel a little bit more on edge. You feel a little bit more irritable. And that leads to relationship issues, whether that's with your partner, whether that's with your coworkers. It affects relationships just because we don't feel good. So I could go on and on. There is anything that you could say, if I could say what's important to me, sleep affects it. And it affects it in a big, big way.
Coming up, Devin discusses the effect of caffeine and alcohol on our sleep quality. He also covers whether a melatonin supplement is recommendable or not.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Raw Optics. Raw Optics makes blue light blocking glasses to help mitigate the effects of artificial light on our bodies. Man-made lights disrupt our hormones, our nervous system, our sleep, and our overall health, day and night, but especially at night. We were meant to be in natural sunlight most of the time. It is essential for our biological function. Honestly, we should aim to get outside in the morning for 10 to 15 minutes to set our body's natural rhythm. The science is clear. Light is critical for the function of our cells. In fact, it was the first nutrient for life. Raw Optics offers nighttime lenses and even daylight lenses that are used to reduce the exposure to man-made light during the day. The benefits from using these glasses include less eye strain, less headaches, less fatigue, and increased energy and relaxation throughout the day. I know I sleep better now that I use the nighttime lenses regularly. So go to rawoptics.com to check them out. That's raw, R-A, optics.com. And use the code WISE for 10% off an order of any size at checkout. Again, that's rawoptics.com and the code word WISE. And a shout out to Optimal Carnivore. Organ meats are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, but sometimes they're difficult to source and tricky to prepare. So Optimal Carnivore started sourcing 100% grass-fed organ meats from New Zealand. They freeze-dry the organs and encapsulate them into convenient bovine gelatin capsules. The products are 100% grass-fed and grass-finished and free of hormones, pesticides, antibiotics, and GMOs. Our ancestors would have eaten the whole animal, so Optimal Carnivore has created a unique blend of 9 different organs, a powerful combination of beef liver, brain, thymus, heart, kidney, spleen, pancreas, lung, and gallbladder. It is a real nose-to-tail solution, perfect for people who are traveling or still trying to develop an appreciation for organ meats. So go to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code WESTON10 at checkout to save 10% on all products. They've got the Brain Nourish, the grass-fed beef liver, and the grass-fed organ complex products for starters. Again, go to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code WESTON10. This is Hilda Labrada Gore, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. such a good point. And to go back to what you were saying before about weight, some people are concerned about their weight. I don't even talk about that anymore because I feel like overall well-being and that sense of well-being is more important. But if you change nothing but prioritize your sleep, you may lose weight because your body will have everything it needs. The hormones will be functioning more properly. It'll be easier to digest your food. You'll get that restorative sleep that helps your body take out the trash and all the things that Devin's saying. So that's super, super fascinating to consider. I interviewed a nurse on this point one time, and she said, if you don't change anything else, but just prioritize your sleep, you may see the difference in your own weight and how you feel in your body.
So if you think about it from a basic survival standpoint, air is most important, right? We last a couple of minutes without air. The next in line is water. The last couple of days without water. The next thing is sleep. Then it's food. Then it's exercise. And so many people focus so much on their diet and their exercise, and they totally neglect sleep. And then they wonder why their body isn't responding to eating these healthier foods and all the effort that goes into their training regimens is because they're not getting enough restoration. They're not getting enough quality sleep to have that really make an impact. So that nurse was a sharp lady.
Devin, now I want to pivot and ask you, what made you personally get into this field of sleep?
Honestly, I thought sleep was a waste of time. Funny enough, my family growing up, I'm an amazing sleeper. It's like a superpower. They would call me narco, short for narcoleptic, because they would all be, watching the Sunday game after church, and I would be asleep, passed out on the couch. It wasn't really until somebody reached out for help. It was somebody that I was coaching. I was coaching a lot of high-performing entrepreneurs, and this particular person had issues with their sleep, and they asked, hey, I'm having a real issue with my sleep. What do you know about sleep? And I said, I was honest. I said, honestly, I don't know anything, but give me some time. Let me see what's available. I started to do the research as to what was available for people that have sleep issues. I was shocked because what I found was sleeping pills. And when I started to understand what sleeping pills actually do, how they work, the side effects, the long-term side effects, I was like, wow, this is not a good solution. This isn't a solution. It's a Band-Aid. So then that got my interest. And then as I started to look into the science of sleep and how important it is, I realized, oh my gosh, how did I miss this? Sleep literally is the foundation that extraordinary health is built on. And nobody was talking about it. And so that piqued my interest. Long story short, I really went down the rabbit hole. I was able to help this person. And then I said, hey, if I could help one person, I could help millions of people. And millions of people have issues with their sleep. So that was 6 years ago. And it's been nonstop sleep since.
Sleep. Yeah, it's amazing. You can keep your eyes open while we're talking right now. No, I'm just kidding. But so let's go back to the sleeping pills for a second, because there may be someone listening right now who's like, well, I take melatonin. I know that helps me. Is that helpful or no? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, so it depends on how they're taking it and why they're taking it. But there was a meta-analysis done that showed that melatonin really doesn't help with our sleep. And melatonin's a hormone. So it naturally is produced in our bodies. So it's like you're taking a hormone. You got to be careful. Yes, it can be used as an amazing antioxidant. They think melatonin as an antioxidant. That's a totally different conversation. But when using melatonin for sleep, I'm not a huge fan. I think there's a whole chapter in my book about sleep supplements and which supplements I would recommend depending on what somebody's struggling with. But really, the answer isn't in a pill. Whether it's a supplement or pharmaceutical pill, those are really, they're Band-Aids. You really need to address the underlying root causes, which is how you're thinking about your sleep, what you're doing during the day, what you're not doing during the day. All of these things have a much bigger impact on our actual improvement in our sleep.
Well, and let's get practical again, because you're good about that. So we already talked about the 3-2-1 sleep method, which is great. What other lifestyle changes can we make to prioritize sleep and get the most out of it?
Yeah. So two of the biggest changes that people can make that are listening to this, I always laugh when I bring this up because these are the things that people love is caffeine and alcohol. So, caffeine, unfortunately, caffeine blocks adenosine. Adenosine is what builds up in our body that creates what's called sleep pressure and sleepiness. And so caffeine blocks that receptor site. That's why it gives you sort of this artificial energy. It's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. So having caffeine too late in the day absolutely will affect your sleep and your sleep quality. And then that's their upper, and then people have their downer, which is alcohol. And alcohol, unfortunately, alcohol disturbs our sleep. It raises our body temperature. And not to say that you can't have a nice glass of organic biodynamic wine at dinner, but most people are using alcohol as a sedative and they're using it to manage their stress. So limiting your use of caffeine as well as alcohol is a good first step. And really looking at what is creating the most stress in your life. Most people go through their day, it's like a blur. They go from one thing to the next to the next. And this is a form of stress. Even if you're going from one thing that you love to the next thing that you love, there needs to be space. And what I found is when people don't have space throughout their day, intentional space just to rest, to allow their mind to rest, to allow their bodies to rest, then the body builds up this tension and pressure. And a lot of times it's not even conscious. People are not aware that this tension is building. And then it takes so much at the end of the day to discharge that tension. Whereas if people just focused on creating some more space and prioritizing some time for rest, mental rest, emotional rest, physical rest throughout the day, it would be so much easier for their body to then rest at night.
Yeah, this sounds really important. And I've seen it modeled with some friends of mine. And even one of my daughters has recently said, I don't want to have every minute of my day scheduled out.
Yeah.
What if a few nights a week, if not every night of the work week, she's like, I just have it open so I can either go home and make a meal or hang out with whoever. And I'm like, wow, this is so countercultural because this is the side hustle, everyday hustle culture. And like, let's make sure we're doing something fun every night or catching up on Netflix, which isn't actually even that relaxing, binge watching things. So I think your counsel is a word to the wise.
I mean, I've seen it after working with literally thousands of people that have very, very bad sleep issues, that people that take this and actually run with it, it makes a tremendous difference. And it does take being open to change because we often associate busyness with importance. There's this, so it's if I'm not busy, then I got nothing going on. And then there's this whole thing that goes on. It's a cultural thing. And people really need to understand that that's going to lead to a lot of issues down the road. If you just don't see how that's affecting every aspect of your life, you're just running through your life from one thing to the next. The presence isn't there. It leads me to the next thing. It's so important for people to practice some type of mindfulness, some type of awareness-based training that allows people to see that they're not their thoughts, that we have thoughts, but thoughts don't have us, and to really to build some emotional intelligence and some space, some headspace to analyze what's going on, the stories that we tell ourselves throughout the day that create all this unnecessary stress. Having the skills to be able to do that yields massive results, not just in your sleep, but just in your happiness and your joy and your ability just to be present and live a happy, healthy life.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. So give us an example, because you said you've worked with thousands of people, and I know you've written your book, The Sleep Advantage, and you've affected so many people. Tell us a story or two of people that you've seen this prioritization of sleep transformation take place in their lives.
Oh my gosh. Well, the people that we work with are really people that are at the end of the rope, been on sleeping medications. They've literally tried the sleep hygiene stuff. They have the perfect sleep environment and they're still not sleeping. And I always tell them they've tried everything that addresses the symptoms, but not the root cause. One particular person that I work with that I love to share the story, her name was Peg. And she literally for 30 years was from medication to medication, trying to solve this. And when she realized that actually it was these subtle little patterns of trying to force and control sleep, and sleep's not something you can force or control. Sleep happens. Sleep is a result. It's not the problem. Once she kind of understood the ways in which she was relating to sleep and how she was trying to force and control it and how she was addressing just the symptoms, but not the underlying stress and the story she was telling herself as to what was happening if she wasn't sleeping and all the stuff that was creating the stress that then kept her up, she was able to sleep. And her life changed. She was literally at a point where, think about 30 years being on sleeping medication and not sleeping, she was losing her memory. She was forgetting people's names. Once she was able to get off the sleep meds and actually restore her natural sleep cycles, her memory came back.
Wow.
And literally she had like a new lease on life. I mean, I always remember her just because it was such a drastic transformation. But a lot of people find themselves in maybe not 30 years on sleeping medications, but a lot of people I think could relate to that story.
I'm sure. So I wanted to ask you, I feel like I've heard of some person like Benjamin Franklin, some historical figure who was like, I only need 4 hours sleep. Maybe it was an inventor, maybe it was Thomas Edison. I don't remember. But there are these people who swear that they can function optimally on fewer hours of sleep. Is that true or a myth? What do you think?
So there are actually, interestingly enough, there is a very small percentage. It's estimated about 1% of the population that can get away with less sleep. But most people think that they're this percentage, and they're not. They wish that they were this percentage. And so it's really, most people do not have this superpower, this short sleeper superpower. And you're sacrificing a lot. And so it's not sustainable. You can get away with it for a little bit. You can get away with less sleep for a little bit of time, but eventually will catch up with you. And it's just not worth it. I mean, life is just so much better when you get the rest that your mind and body need. So yeah, so if you're listening to this, and you actually can get a genetic test to see if you are one of these short sleepers. So, but like 99% of people, that even if you took action on that, it would come back that you are not, unfortunately.
And Devin, when I hear you speaking about the benefits of sleep, I feel like you've experienced this firsthand. I wanted to ask if after you did some of this study, if you changed some habits, even though you feel like it was a superpower that you could sleep at any time, and if you saw some changes.
What I realized is one of the reasons why sleep was a superpower was because I wasn't doing it as well as I thought. So when I really started to study my own sleeping patterns, I wasn't getting into the deeper stages of sleep. I wasn't getting into the deeper stages of REM sleep. And the reason why I was probably such a good sleeper was actually because I wasn't doing it very well. My body was trying to catch up on the sleep. And so that was a really eye-opening thing for me. And when I started to implement some of the things that I even just shared in this conversation, it did make a huge difference. Physically, mentally, emotionally, creatively. I just have now more energy, more juice, more joy. And that didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of openness and experimentation, but it made a big difference. And that's what keeps me so passionate about sharing this message.
Well, I'm so glad you did. And who knows, maybe we should do a part 2 and talk about the most common sleep problems and how to address them. But right now, I feel like our time is elapsing, so I need to wrap up and ask you the question I like to pose at the end. If the listener could just do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do, Devin?
Prioritizing your sleep, that's the big thing. When people prioritize their sleep and they actually get to experience the benefits of what that does, it's better than any drug. So that's the one tip.
Devin, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate talking to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
Our guest today was Devin Burke. Visit his website, devinburke.com, to check out his book, The Sleep Advantage, and other resources. And I'm Hilda Labrada-Gore, the host and producer of this podcast for the Weston A. Price Foundation. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for this podcast episode, visit our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a letter to the editor from a recent journal. Connie, a chapter leader from Kansas, had this to say: thriving on raw milk. My chubby, very cute, happy, basketball-loving 19-month-old grandson is thriving on raw milk. He does not want to eat, actually. He was born at home, nursed, and did not develop chewing capabilities until after a year old. He would sometimes gnaw on homemade arrowroot crackers. He would not touch egg yolks, but now he doesn't want anything except raw milk. One day soon, no doubt, he will find his appetite and will chow down food like his 5 siblings. I just find it fascinating that when you give children the right thing, they thrive even when it seems minimal to us. I love to recommend raw milk, especially in situations where digestive issues are serious. In these cases, getting adequate nutrition is paramount, but difficult. Raw milk, since the greens are already processed through the 4 stomachs of the cow, assimilates so easily and gives tremendous benefits. I grew up on it, gave it to my 5 children, and still drink it daily. Again, this is a letter from Connie in Kansas. Connie, thank you for your letter. This is so encouraging. And we would love to hear your testimonials as well. What has made a difference in your health? Write us at info@westonaprice.org, put letter to the editor in the subject line, and tell us one of your stories, perhaps how the diet has helped you, or the podcast, or any of our resources. Thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well. Hasta pronto.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.